Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new Let's Play of Timberborn. I've known about Timberborn for quite some time and I even gave it a shot a while ago, but it wasn't until recently that the game truly made me fall in love with it. At its core, Timberborn is a city builder with a strong focus on survival and resource management. But what sets it apart are its unique twists. Most notably, you are not guiding humans, as those went extinct after a cataclysmic event of their doing, but a tribe of industrious beavers, which alone is a reason enough to give it a try in my opinion, as these little guys are incredibly cute. I could easily spend hours just chilling in the game, unwinding after stressful workdays, just gradually expanding my settlements. But I don't want you guys to be fooled by the cuteness of the game. On hard difficulty, and yes, we will of course be playing on hard, the game is absolutely unforgiving, especially in the early stages. It will challenge you time and time again, and if you slip, your entire population can be wiped out within a few days. And that's exactly why I decided to begin this series with a tutorial playthrough, starting with this episode. You see, Timberborn at its core is all about mastering the environment. There's a whole range of challenge maps available both on Steam and on dedicated web pages, and I definitely want to showcase some of these maps in the future episodes. This is where the core of the game's difficulty lies, where the environment is ramped up to a 10. But since those videos will be more fast-paced, and I plan to heavily edit this Let's Play to make it a little bit more exciting, I thought that it would be good to start with something more grounded. A tutorial series that explains how the game works, highlight the core mechanics and challenges, and walk you through how I personally approach them. Now, while there are plenty of tutorials already out there, I actually struggle to find one that really matches the way I like to play, which is diving into the hard mode and learning to master it through experience. So part of the goal here at the start is to fill that gap and hopefully provide something useful for others with a similar mindset. And who knows, maybe I'll even inspire some of you to pick up the game for yourselves, because it's really fun and honestly an amazing game. And you know, it's one of the few that is actually doing this whole early access thing right. And I truly hope that the developer continues building on it in the coming months and years even. With all that said, let's talk a little bit about this playthrough. I'll be recording this tutorial on a map, one of the default maps that come with the game, on one that I haven't played before called Hollows. From what I've seen, it's not the most punishing map out there, but it does offer a solid challenge and gives us a plenty of opportunity to walk through all the essential mechanics before we tackle the more brutal maps later on. And boy, do I have some in store for you guys. It should also serve as a good example on how I approach an unfamiliar map, and most likely it will show even some of the mistakes that you can avoid when designing your own settlements. Well, I'm actually doing those mistakes. One last note before we jump in. If you have any questions about the game, mechanics, or anything I gloss over, feel free to drop them in the comments. I will be happy and I'll do my best to answer any kind of questions. And hey, you know, it wouldn't be the first time that you guys actually teach me something in return. So now let's get into it. Time to build something awesome with beavers. So the first thing we have to do before we even can look around the map is to name our settlement. Now, considering we're playing on a map called Hollows, I'm gonna name our settlement Hollowpine, and then when I press start, the game will automatically unpause and run. So what is this? Well, here we have our district center, and here is our population of beavers. As you can see in the top left, we have 8 adults and 4 children, and each one of these beavers, which you can see here, has their own unique name, age, and stats. Now the stats can be, well, they can be divided in a number of categories. You have basic needs, nutrition, then you have social life, aesthetics, and awe and fun, and the last one is knowledge. Now each one of these has a certain meter. Some of these needs or desires are non-negotiable. So for example, hunger, thirst, and sleep. If your beaver runs out of these for a certain time, they can die. So you need to make absolutely sure that they have something to eat, drink, and that they get some sleep. I mean, the sleep is a little bit weird because, you know, they just fall asleep if they are exhausted. So I've never actually seen a beaver die out of sleep deprivation, but I consider it a non-negotiable need as well because they just need it. However, if they don't eat or drink for 3 days, they are going to die. So these ones are absolutely mandatory. The other ones, like nutrition and social life and aesthetics, those are negotiable. You don't have to fill them, and the colony can still grow and thrive. However, there is a really interesting mechanic in the game that I would say very nicely motivates you to fill as many needs of your beavers as you can. Here you can see the working speed, the movement speed, and the life expectancy of this beaver who is aged 18 or has an age of 18. And you will notice that the working speed has a 0% modifier, but if we get the well-being of this beaver, which is the aggregate number of all of its desires, to 5, it is going to start working 20% faster. Similarly, if we get the well-being to 2, it's going to start moving faster by 5%. And if we get it to 7, its life expectancy will increase by 20%. And it goes up, of course. Like if you get to 14, you will get additional 20%, and I think so on and so on. The same thing for movement speed and same thing for working speed. So you really are motivated by the game to try to fill as many desires of your beavers as possible because it gives you an immediate benefit back. And I really like this mechanic because it's clever and it makes sense. It's also important to note that not all desires are made equal. For example, if your beavers start starving or they suffer from thirst, these ones will turn to -10. So, you know, or it doesn't really matter if they have aesthetics at all, it is going to tank your well-being. Similarly, if you, for example, provide them with shrubs and roofs, it's gonna just give them +1 and 1 in the aesthetics department. But if you provide them with an agora, they will get +3, and the dance hall is going to give them +5. Now they also decrease gradually. It doesn't just drop from +5 to 0. So the more of these resources they have available, the higher the overall stat is going to be. So this is a really clever and nice mechanic that I like, and it's really important to know about it from the very beginning because it plays a huge role when it comes down to how you plan to build your colony. Now, when it comes to the young ones, they have the same stats, but instead of work speed, they get growth speed. So even with them, you are motivated to provide them with as many things as possible. And of course, the young beavers, or children, let's call them. I know that's not the correct term for beaver young, but I kind of think about them as children, you know, because they're so cute and, you know, it's your population, it's your citizens. Anyway, the boost is added to their growth speed. So each of the beavers takes some time to reach adulthood, and until they do, they actually just consume resources. They do not provide anything for you. So accelerating their growth speed is in your best interest. So in short, you have your beavers, each one of them has their own desires, their own age. They will die of old age, or they will die of, you know, various hunger and thirst. Hopefully not. Hopefully that's not going to happen here, but it can happen. On some maps it is super hard, especially in the beginning, to make your beavers survive, but hopefully we are going to be able to do that on this map or in this playthrough. Now again, this menu here provides you a really nice overall look at your beavers. You can also see here what they're doing, if they have a house, which is another big part that I'm going to talk a little bit later in depth about. And we will also see notifications about how the how the overall well-being of our beavers keep raising. So if you reach a certain threshold, the game is going to notify you that your beavers have reached 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is. Now, with that out of the way, the way you should probably approach every single playthrough, especially if you're playing on a map that you do not know, is to take a good look at your environment and realize what you have to deal with, because it is very, very important to have a good plan in place right from the beginning. Now, as I mentioned, this is going to be a playthrough on hard. This map is one of the basic ones, so it is not extremely hard, not easy. It's gonna be very difficult though, as most hard playthroughs are, to manage to do everything that we want in due time. I'm gonna explain why and what I mean by due time. But let's just have a look at where we are. So you can see that the map has a bunch of things. We have these grassy areas, which are fertile land, which are always located around sources of water. The water itself is split between two different types. There's the good water, which you can drink and you can use, which basically waters your fields and that grows your trees. And then there's bad water, which is this one. It's a polluted, ugly, dirty water. Now, considering this game is dealing with post-apocalyptic world, many maps are constituted more or less, for example, only of bad water, and you can many of the goals of various maps is to eliminate bad water as much as possible. It's going to be our goal here as well eventually, but for now we don't really need to deal with it. Just know that it is here, it's bad, and it is extremely difficult to deal with it in the beginning of the game. Now, there are ways to do it, but we'll talk about it later. Also, it is important to note that bad water is not all that bad. It has certain uses, and we are going to encounter those later. Now, apart from that, as I mentioned, there's also forests. You can see that there are some really nice green forests, and there are some dead forests, which is another mechanic in the game, as the water will be moved around, because like 90% of the strategy in the game revolves around managing water. We are beavers in the end, so this is what we do. And you can see that, trees can grow in fertile areas, but they cannot grow in a polluted area, so which is the area where the bad water is. So even though this area is considered fertile, because there is also bad water here, all of these trees have died. They can be still cut down for wood and used, but nothing fertile or nothing living will grow here ever again until we remove the source of bad water, which again is part of the game and part of something that we want to do. Now, the water mechanics are very complex, and we're gonna play with that a lot as we're gonna go through, but just know that for now, water good, bad water bad. Apart from that, there's one more thing that I wanted to mention. There is this, which is shrubs or blueberries, which you can gather as an emergency or starting source of food. We are going to do that here as well, use it as a supplement, but beavers are fairly good farmers, so we are going to switch to farming very early. So now let's look at what we are going to do and why I keep saying that you need to have a look around the map right off the bat, because it is important to know what you are going to do. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of mechanics are dealing with water management. Right now, you can see that we have cycle 1, day 1, but we are going to be hit constantly with something that's called a drought. When a drought happens, all sources of water on the map are going to dry up for a number of days. It can be 3 days in the beginning, but it can go as long as 10, 15, even longer in days at the end of the game. So managing your water and figuring out how to keep it on the map is extremely important. It's not just about retaining water, there's evaporation. So as your colony grows, or as your city, whatever you want to call it, you need more and more water. That is going to be super important for you. And it's not only about retaining water, Apart from droughts, you can also be called with something which is called bad tide, which will turn all of the sources of water on the map, which are these areas like here and here, which is, as I can see, the closest one to us. They are all going to turn into sources of bad water, which means all of your crops, all of your trees, everything, depending on the length of the bad tide, is going to die. So right off the bat, you need to have a very clear idea about what we are going to do here. And I'm already starting to have an idea as I'm, looking around the map and talking. So you can see that we are here, located in this very nice area where there's a bunch of waterfalls, and the water flows from here down here. In the late game, what we are going to do is we're probably going to turn this entire area into a water reservoir. We can build a large dam here and just fill this whole thing with water, which should, at any point we will want, retain our colony. Now, what is going to be an issue here is going to be the fact that when this turns into bad tide, it is going to pollute all of the sources of water that we have. Now, what we could do with this is there is a bad water source here, and the water, or the bad water, actually flows from this area into this area and off the map. And there is a canal here that could be used. So we could basically make this into a twofold dam, where there's gonna be one dam over here, actually starting here, going like this, and a second one that we're gonna build later on that's gonna be over here. And when the drought starts, we're just gonna use the water in both of these dams. But if a bad tide happens, we are gonna close off the outer dam, and the inner dam is going to be ventilated through this area out here, and the bad water is just gonna flow out. And because we're gonna isolate the good water in the outer dam, we can use that still to keep ourselves safe. Now, the issue that I'm already seeing is that this is really high. So we will need to project our dam really to be of at least this height right at the bat. So what we're gonna do here is, well, the immediate goal is going to be to retain this river. We will use this area as a small reservoir for the first drought, because that one is gonna hit us very soon. So the water that's flowing through here, we're gonna try to retain in this area, because it's actually fairly deep. And if we build a small dam over here and a small dam over here, it will give us enough water to survive the first and maybe even the second drought. We can build an additional small dam here to retain this area to water our crops, but then immediately we're going to start working on this large scale project, because usually you have 3 or 4 cycles before the first bad tide can hit you. Sometimes it's randomized, so sometimes if you're lucky you can have even 5, 6, but we really cannot count on that. So making sure that we have a reservoir here that can be redirected here will save us from pretty much certain death if we cannot do it. Now there are ways how you can retain water and keep your beavers fed. We could also build large-scale plantation and just survive through the pollution and the bad tide on reserves of water that we will basically pump out of the river, and on stored food, but it doesn't sound too enticing to me. So we're gonna try to make this happen, but again, it's gonna cost us a lot of wood. I'm not sure if we're gonna have enough here. There's a lot of it over here. We're gonna have to see. I cannot really project that at this point, but we're gonna do that. So our goals, as I mentioned immediately, you now understand why I'm talking about that, is going to be a small reservoir here for the first drought, and then starting from the second drought we are going to try to build a little dam here that we're going to use for ourselves, which will work as the inner dam, and later on expand it for the outer dam. And a first step is going to be to just build it up and have a huge reservoir in this entire area, probably to this level. Kind of interestingly, there is a blockage here, so later on you can have two areas where to flush out the batite if you want. I'm gonna have to see how that's gonna work for us. Alright, so I explained the most important mechanics and our plans for this game. Now, how are we going to go here? Well, the Beavers can construct a ton of things, but they need wood for most of them. So our first primary goal is going to be to start harvesting wood over here. It's going to be to provide our beavers with a source of clean water, and it is going to be to start research. Now, when I'm talking about research, well, most of the, well, I wouldn't even say advanced, but a lot of your buildings, apart from the very basic ones, are locked behind research. We need to gather research to do even the basic things, and for us the very important thing that we're going to have to do here is to get the levee. The levee we're going to use to lock this small area for ourselves. As I mentioned, we will block it here, and I guess maybe just here to, minimize the amount of wood that we will need in the beginning. What we have access to right now is a dam, which I would probably build just here as a first step, so that we can retain water here, so it doesn't all flow out, to get us through our first drought. But again, we're gonna try to be a little more industrious and get the levee over here. However, that already requires 120 points of research. So the first buildings that we're gonna build is, we're gonna build a road for our beavers to get here, and to start chopping down this wood immediately, because we will need to harvest, if not all of these trees, most of them. So let's start by doing that. I'm gonna take a lumberjack flag, and we're gonna start 4 places here for the beavers to immediately start getting this wood. Now, with that said, we will need to make them actually, or to mark these trees for them to harvest. Alright, it's usually a good idea to not mark all of your trees, because then if you keep some trees around, they can spread more trees naturally, through seeds and everything, but we're just gonna monitor it as they are gonna work through it, because you can see there's a lot of these small trees who you can see it takes 12 days for them to grow. This one is very young, it's only 13% through. So as we're gonna cut down these bigger trees, there will definitely be a bunch of these small ones left behind, and we're gonna just unmark them one by one, like so. I can already show you that, for example, these ones will be unmarked, these two, and I'll unmark these ones as well, so that the forest will regenerate itself. Now you have a forester building here, which you can get, but again, it requires further research. So that is going to come, we're probably going to do it during the first drought, just to, prepare for more of it, because we also have trees here. Actually, these ones provide more logs, because these are oaks. Pines provide only 2 logs per cut, and oaks provide 8. So I'm gonna actually change my strategy here. Again, I'm doing this blind, so I might not be completely optimal, but I'm trying to show you how I think about these things, because they matter, and you need to have a good strategy right off the bat. So let us, this we can keep, we're gonna deal with that later on, but for now, let us start with cutting down these dead trees. I'm just marking them all to be cut. because there's not gonna be any spread here, so we do not really have to work on that. So we'll try cutting down these trees. Now, as I mentioned, we will definitely need to start research as fast as possible. So the next thing that we are going to build here is going to be the research huts or inventor huts. I always forget what they're called. And we can build those over here. I'm gonna build 3 of them, which might sound like an overkill to many, but it is really important for us to get the DV as fast as possible. Then we can pause the ongoing research and focus on other things, but right now we need to do that. So if you think about it, we already have 4 beavers that are going to be cutting the trees, and we will have 3 researchers that will work on research. That doesn't really give us too much wiggle room. So as we're going to move through the buildings, we are going to close off some of these lumberjack spots so that we have beavers working on other areas. So because we now have the research ongoing and the wood chopping ongoing, we can focus on water. Now, why I actually spoke about the reservoir being made here is because this has a height of 2. This might not seem like a big thing, but if we build a water pump here, it will be able to pump for longer amount of time from this area than it would be, for example, if we just dam this area, because the water will evaporate here and it will dry out much faster if we pump water from it. Instead, if we manage to make this area a little bit closed off using the levees and the dams, we will retain way more water here, and it will be used just for the water pumping. So the water pump has a height, or it can pump with a maximum depth of 2. So if we build in here, you will see that it goes all the way down, and if we build a reservoir here and the water goes up, it will have way more water to work with. Now this is a little bit advanced, but I'm trying to immediately make you think about the water management, because the worst thing that can happen to you during a drought is you basically running out of water and your beavers going thirsty, because while food is usually stockpiled and you have a big overflow as the harvests come in, the water is an immediate threat, and once you run out of water, things start to get super serious. So we're going to connect this to our main roads. And the last thing that we need to build right off the bat is going to be a farm. Now, farm is important because as you plant the crops, they also need time to grow. And carrots, which is the basic source of food for your beavers, take 4 days to grow. So you need to start building your farms as fast as possible so that you plant as early as possible, and then you can harvest as soon as possible. So I'm just going to put a farm over here, and we are going to plant, and you will understand why I'm doing this if you've been paying attention, along this river. And again, because as the drought is going to come, the fertile land is going to be reduced and reduced and reduced towards the river, and this area is going to be the last one that's going to retain the water and thus its fertility. So let's do it like this. It's not exactly super efficient, but we're gonna get better as we're gonna have an idea of what is going on. This should be more than enough for our beavers to survive. We have only 12 of them. I think this could feed about 20, maybe even 30, and we're gonna expand on it later on. Actually, I'm gonna expand on it right now a little bit too, so I think we can have more like this. All right, so the last thing that we need to do, and that's very important, is setting priorities for our beavers. You have priority for jobs and priority for construction. So these ones are going to be prioritized maximally, so they build them first. Then they're going to move to building the inventor huts. Once those are going to be done, they are going to move to the farm, because we want to start planting as fast as possible. And then last but not least, they're going to move to the water pump. Now the water pump is going to have a low priority, but it's going to have a very high work priority because we need to make sure that it's going to pump water immediately from its inception. That is because while the beavers are not thirsty now, by the time that we're building the water pump, they will start getting thirsty and we need to satiate them as fast as possible. Now, when it comes to inventor huts, they're also going to have a super high priority because we want them to be built built and start working immediately, which is going to happen because we'll have just 4 and 3 here. But as the other jobs, like the farms, are going to come around, beavers will have to decide where they're going to work. So eventually we are actually going to put some of these jobs to low priority. So what's going to happen is beavers will build these lumberjack places. They're going to start cutting trees. They will... I'm going to put more workers here. They will start the work. And then when they build the inventor's hut, you have 4 construction workers and 4 lumberjacks. They are going to take spots from the construction place to fill the inventor huts. Then we will need them to start farming, and I'm going to make this a little bit of a higher priority, which will drag everyone from the other jobs, with the exception of the inventor's hut, to farm. Once the farm is settled, I'm going to pause it. You can pause buildings, which means that it will produce no jobs and the beavers are going to fill the other jobs as well, like building. And then when the water pump is constructed, they are going to assign these with the highest priority. So we will ensure that water pump and the inventors are always running, and we're just going to be juggling the construction, farming, and lumberjack jobs. Last but not least, before I unpause and do the skip for the beavers to start working, is that I'm going to increase their work time to 24 hours. There will be no sleeping on the first day because we need to be as efficient as possible, but from the second day onward we're going to set it to 20 hours, which is enough for the beavers to get enough rest. It's not going to be enough for them to do anything like, you know, visit a spa or, you know, do anything other than work and feed and drink, but it's going to be enough for them to keep them at the well-being of 0. Eventually we're going to reduce it to 18 hours. I guess that's usually where I have it. I don't really go down to 16 hours, but you want to keep it lower later on because then your beavers can spend more time satisfying their desires and needs, and they're more happy, and eventually they are even more efficient in what they're doing because, you know, 20, 40, 60% bonus to their work speed will more than make up for, you know, the 2 hours that you're going to give them to you know, work on their own desires. Cool. So this is all for now. I'm gonna unpause it and you'll see the beavers starting to run and construct, and I'll be back when we have a working colony. Look at this little fella hammering on the tree, taking it down. Don't tell me you don't think this is super cute. Anyway, we have finished all the tasks that we wanted. Here we have our beaver farmers actually planting the last few of the crops. I extended the farm a little bit, but as I mentioned, we now have a working water pump. We have 3 inventor houses already. We have 45 science in the books, and the farm is going to be ready. Now the thing with the farm is that in the beginning you don't need it for that much because the planted carrots take 4 days, as I mentioned before, to grow, and there's nothing for your beavers to do in the meantime. So it is a good idea to get it up and running as soon as possible, and then you can just pause it and put the beavers on something else. But this is why I put their workplace at a relatively high priority, so that every time I need to put it back on, that is when the crops will start coming, we get workers immediately and they can start harvesting. Now eventually you will get to a point, in most cases, where your beavers will continuously work on your farm and they will just keep harvesting and replanting the crops if your field are big enough, which is the ideal way of work. You can have them do that all the time, but in the beginning it's a little bit more efficient to have them not do that, because you can save a lot of time if you plant a harvest, then gather the harvest, and then plant it again. But I think this field is big enough for us to maybe even see that working, even maybe if we have to do a little bit of an extension. So what do we do now? Well, we just got 3 extra beavers who will become workers again, because we have only 1 beaver working here, and we have just a couple. Well, actually no, we have 18 logs over here, 16 logs here, and 9 logs here. It is kind of important for you to keep an eye on this, unless you have a storage space, which is what I'm gonna build next. This might be a little bit of a waste, but I like to keep a large pile for the trees, so that I have trees for the logs, so that I have an idea about how well we're doing when it comes to the supply of wood, especially for our VVs and dams. I also want to I want to create a gatherer station here, so that we can start gathering these berries. Now, the berries aren't really a good source of food. They are a source of food, so they will satiate hunger, but they do not give any nutrition, which means that they are like the basic source of food that you can get. And while they will prevent beavers from dying, they really do not give them anything. Now we start with 82 of them, which is enough for most cases, but it's good, you know, to have a beaver gathering more. The bad part is that you need some place to actually have those berries, you know, some place where you can deposit them, because the gatherer flag for berries has the same issue as the lumberjack flag. It has a very limited amount of space, and I kind of don't like building large storage spaces for them, because they cost 15 logs. So if you build one for carrots, you build one for berries, you build one for, you know, other stuff that you start to plant, you are looking at dozens and dozens of logs that you need to spend on storages. It's good to do it later on, but not in the beginning. So for now, what I think I'm gonna do is we're just gonna build a small warehouse, which costs only 3 logs, but has a capacity of only 30. So we'll have about 50 berries here as an additional source of food. I don't think we'll ever need it, but it is a good idea to have it just in case, so that you avoid any kind of famine in your colony. So let's just put it here. It costs nothing to get it. I'm gonna leave one of the beavers to work on that. We are going to build a large pile. I'd like to put it here, but it's a little bit of a waste because this is a fertile land, so it would be better to put it here, but then the beavers would have to just go and deposit the logs there. So I still think we're just gonna put it here. Okay, let's remake this road a little bit, so we don't waste space. Actually, that's the only difference between then and now. I built an additional road here because the beavers that were going to build the water pump just kept walking around. So this is one thing to keep in mind. Beavers only walk, if they have any choice, on the paths. So you should be a little bit careful with how you plan those. And now let's put here again the lumberjack flags. I didn't want to turn you. That's wrong. So we'll have beavers actually working here too. Oh, and we've already marked this for gathering. So we have a couple of beavers here for construction that are gonna work on this, and then they're gonna start working on these flags. So I think I can unpause it. They'll also work on this one, which is fine. We just have to micro this one a little bit so that, you know, when it fills with berries, we do not need to keep it running. We can unpause it. But with the 52 science that we have already now, actually, what I need to do, and I always forget about it, I'm gonna turn down the working hours to just 20, so that our beavers won't start dropping with exhaustion. Oh, and I've done a little mistake here. I just realized we wanted to build a dam here to keep the water here for the crops, and I already planted planted here. My mistake. So I'll show you how you can mark resources for demolition. The workers will come here and they'll just clear it out. And I could probably, if I want to build another water pump here, I'll do the same for these two. I was a little bit too trigger happy with these. So let's build a road here and have the dams like this, which will give us access to the other side of the river. Oh, and I forgot the important part, which is you need to assign the resources to each one of your storage spaces. Alright, so these are now being worked on. They will suck out workers from our district, so that we will have no builders, but we'll have a bunch of lumberjacks, or, well, I mean, toothjacks would be probably, or lumber tooths. And how would you call that? That's a little bit bizarre, but you know what I mean. Guys who are actually dealing with that. And because the sleep is now an issue, you can see that our overall well-being has dropped to -2. But we're not in a danger. The beavers will just sleep it off once the day ends and they will be okay. And we actually got a new beaver, Jumoke. He was a kid and he now grew up. So we now have 9 beavers instead of 8. Other one, Ziata will come later on. And you can see beavers are now getting first aid, but because we have a working pump already storing water, we are fine there, so they will be okay. They'll just have a little drink and they'll be fine. So logs are being stationed here. We have everyone working. We still have one worker who is getting rid of these plants. So that is good, and night is coming. So tomorrow what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start working on building a dam here, which will make sure that the water will be retained here, probably not through the entirety of the drought, but it will keep our plants from dying, because I think they can wither within 3 days, and the drought can take usually 4 to 6 days in the beginning. Based on the setting of the map, I keep it on default, so it's fairly randomized, and it's based also on the map. Some maps have it harder, some maps have it a bit more lenient. So what we're gonna do here is, because we have you guys done, we have one worker, farm is done, you guys are just chugging along here, and then now we'll have 2 main goals, which is gonna be to gather as much gather as much wood as possible. Well, actually, you're gathering these berries. Alright, so before we do anything more, I'll just build... Let's build 2 small warehouses here for berries, just so that we can have him working on that a little bit longer. And once that is done, I am going to build the dam here, which is the first thing that we need to do to make this happen. Now the second thing that we will need to do, and that will be dependent on how well we are going to perform, is to gather water in this area for the water pump. Now we still haven't had the drought hit us, so we're doing good, but if we gather enough wood, we can hopefully finish this little reservoir. We will need, if I build the levees, I could build them here, so that's 3, and then dam. So it's 3 times 12, and 3 times 20, so that's 60. Okay, my math. Is it really 96 logs? It is 96 logs. Okay, so we'll need 96 logs over here, and then we'll need even more over here. So we'll need a lot of logs. I'm not sure if we're gonna manage that. But in either case, we can build just the levees. So we're going to start with the levees. And then if we have those done, we can basically say, yes, this is not going to, the water can spill over the levees, so it's not an issue. And it will block the water from getting away. And then if we are successful, we can build dams on top of that to have even more water. All right, sounds like a plan. All right, So we have our first drought approaching. It's going to be here in 3 days. In the meantime, as you can see, it's day 4 of the first cycle. The cycle ends with either drought or a bad tide. And we will have enough food and hopefully even water ready for when it comes. I finished up these small storages for the berries, so we're doing good there. We've also paused the farm before, and I have just noticed that we have enough science. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do here, because we're starting to gain a decent amount of lumber here, I will pause at the work of 2 of these inventor huts, which is gonna give us additional workers. We now have 10 beavers. The beaver called Jatalie grew up, and now we need to figure out what we're gonna do with them. And if I unpause, I think they are gonna default to being workers, which is good. And we have 1 beaver taking down these trees, and then we're gonna have another beaver taking down these trees. Just let's have enough. Now, there is one problem though. When I was looking over the flow of the water, I actually realized I was completely mistaken. This water is not dropping here and then flowing to both directions. This one is actually another stream that's originating here. This is why I always say check your map correctly in the beginning, because, you know, I just didn't do that and based my plans on a completely futile premise. So, not futile premise, that makes no sense, and I go on a completely wrong premise. So what's gonna happen here is that if we dammed it here and here, the water would basically flood this entire area, which is, you know, not a bad idea, but we don't want to do it now because we still have a lot of trees here that we want to cut down. So we can basically just dam it here, and if we do that correctly, the water here will also be retained, and that's actually going to be a lot of it. So what I think I'm going to do instead is just build a simple dam over there. Yeah, because here it's getting mixed with bad water and it stops being usable. Actually, but that's not complicated. Let's just put a simple dam here. It's going to be much simpler than I thought. Eventually, again, this area could be flooded, and there are, I haven't spoken about that yet, but there are aquatic farmhouses where you basically farm in the water. So this would be a great place to actually do that, because this entire area would be underwater. We could get water from it. We could have farms there. We could have regular farms here and on the other side. Here we would have the major dam, and we would basically build up and up over here, and on the other sides over here. And that sounds like a great idea. So I'm gonna focus on that now, because I think that is a better plan to what we are trying to do here. But we'll still have to figure out if this is the right way to go. I also need much less wood for that, which is also great news. But we still need to unlock the levee, because to cross over here and to build this dam here, we will still need to do it. So right now, I am going to... I mean, the levee is always useful, so it's actually a great idea to get it. But I wish I knew that before, because it would make everything much simpler for me. So I'm gonna start with... I think this is good enough. And we are going to build the levee over it, just so that they can access it. I could have done that, well, actually I could have done that completely differently. There is a simple platform here that you can use to walk over things, but you know, we've already committed to that, and that's going to give me the option to actually start working later on this one. So, you know, but then again, I'm kind of doing this wrong, because this plan was to put the levees down, then the dam above it, and just create a small reservoir here, which wouldn't work in this case, because of course the water would start flooding in this area. But yeah, I mean, this is not bad news in any way for our colony. It just means that we have done this a little bit differently than I thought. But hey, you know, we'll survive the first drought, no problem. We'll have enough of everything that we want. And once we're actually going to finish this one, we will be free to start expanding our population, which means two things. We'll need more food, more water, and start to build housing, because beavers only, well, beavers make young when they have a place to live. There is a simple unlocked housing that you get right at the beginning, which is called a lodge. Each of them, or each of the lodges, can have 3 inhabitants, and if you have lodges with 3 slots and your beavers are not working 24/7, they will eventually make young. So that is a way how we can do this. Well, we haven't, yeah, we'll have enough logs. Oh, we don't have anything to work on anymore, so I'm just gonna, no, I'm not stopping. It's this one. Alright, so you guys can now cut here. Here you can see that we've already, by the way, finished the dam, and the water here went up a little. It's not as low as in this river. You can see that now it's much higher, meaning that when the drought comes, it will most likely not evaporate completely in the... Well, I don't know if it's gonna be a 3-day drought or it's just gonna be just, you know, a 5-day drought or something, but even if it's a 3-day drought, then we should be completely fine. And yeah, the carrots are gonna be ready soon, so that's good news. So we'll just finish up this, and then we can start thinking about making another... Yeah, you're also gaining a ton of berries here, so this is fine. We could probably connect here via another dam, for example. You can get bridges later on, but dams are just simple to build in the beginning. And create maybe another farm on the other side to get potatoes, which are, well, a much better source of happiness for beavers, even if they are a little bit harder to build, to get, basically plant, and they take more time to plant, and you need to bake them to make the beavers happy. They can eat them raw, I think, as well, but it's better if they bake them. But we would have 2 major sources of food, which is, as you will see, going to boost the happiness of our beavers. And because we're going to remove the negative penalty for the shelters with grilled with carrots, which give extra happiness. It's better to see it on the actual individual beaver because it tells you here. So carrots give extra 1, and grilled potatoes gives +2. So we're gonna bump up our happiness to 6 at least, just on these 2 sources of food. So it's gonna be our next step. In the meantime, we're gonna start planning to dam this area, which is gonna be exactly as we're, planning it. I don't think it's just gonna have to clear these trees. We can keep the bushes there, they're gonna die when flooded, but it's gonna be a project. I'm gonna have to go like this, which means we will need to start planting our trees by ourselves, which again in turn means getting a forester, which we will get enough for that. I have to find a spot for the forest. I guess this one is good, or we could do it even here for now, or here. And yeah, then we're gonna have a renewable food source, renewable water source, and we will have protection from bad tides. And then, it's just a matter of growing our colony to where we want it. Alright, it's day 6 of the first cycle, and you can see that the carrots are coming in. So we can unpause the farm and have most of our workers actually move themselves to this beautiful farmhouse, so they will start gathering carrots. We also have a decent amount of berries as a backup, which we're gonna continue managing a little bit. I paused it because we had full on storage, but you can see that the beavers ate a little bit of it. We actually removed or ate over the berries that we had in our district center, so that is fine. And we are almost done with finishing up the dam, so we are on point basically when it comes to everything. The food is gonna be ready, the dams will protect us when it comes to the water. We are harvesting wood here. We have additional sources of wood which we are going to start using. I'm wondering what this is supposed to be. There's a little bit of a place here that might That's probably... I mean, you know, it always... The developers usually make the maps very intricate, so every kind of cranny and nook that you can find on the map has some kind of reason. And this one could be very well that you can put water here as a small reservoir to basically water this entire area and make it fertile. I don't know why we want to make, probably because of the trees or something in that area. Alright, so we have finished the dam here. Now we're just gonna finish the levee. And because our farmers are already collecting the carrots, once we finish this one, I'm going to put down a couple of storage houses for the carrots. Probably 2 is going to be enough. And we'll just leave this one now permanently on so that we build a decent storage of food. You can see that once they pick up the carrots, they are going to immediately go and replant it. So you have basically a situation where they are gathering carrots and immediately replanting them behind them, which is how I like it and how I explained it in the beginning. We have half a day come and go before the drought. I actually had a little bit of extra beaver power, so yeah, because we're now up to 11 beavers, so I've put one of these inventor huts back online so that we can gather a little bit more science. Come on guys, finish up this so that you open up this area. Yeah, as you can see, some of these trees that we left behind are now regrowing on, well, they grew and they are, you know, creating more and more of these additional little tiny trees that we can leave behind. I could build a forester, you know, here and just have it grow on its own, but I like to have it done naturally as the forests expand over the area. Alright, so this is done. Now we will just gather a little bit more wood so I can build the storage. The storage is really not an important thing. You don't have to do that. I just like to do it because of having a stockpile. If you manage your resources well, you never pretty much need them. But again, like you see, we have the berries here, and I like to be ready for any kind of emergency because, you know, you might think that you have everything under control, but the game has a nasty way of coming back at you when you least expect it. Alright, so can we put... Yes, you can put 2 of them over here. We'll put these for carrots. You can see the overview of how much food you have up here. We have 51 berries and 50 carrots, and I think 50, yeah, is the edge of what you can store in the farm. So you can see they even left some carrots here lying in the actual field with a ton of carrots actually to be harvested. All right, and we are going to see our first drought come very soon. Now you can also micromanage the water pump, where you can pause and unpause it to get an extra worker. I used that while off cam a couple of times to just maximize the production of wood, but it's not necessary. If you dam your areas and you manage the other resources, you can leave your water pump on all the time. It will avoid situations where your beavers will start getting significantly thirsty and you will not notice that. There is a really nifty way how you can store water. There is a small tank here that you can build around, which will give you additional capacity of 15, which is an alternative way how you can store water during the droughts if there is no way for you to retain water. So here will be okay because the water pump will work even through the drought. As you can see, we have enough water here, but if we had just a small tiny reservoir left, it would have the issue of us being able to actually pump out all of the water out of the reservoir and running out. So then it would be a good idea to, and you can see with the first coming up even a little, our happiness is tanking. So it's, you know, a good way to have your, it's a good idea to have your beavers always available man, I'm watching the sentence. It is a good idea to have a source of water always readily available. Alright, look at our tiny beavers, just all tuckered out there, just lying on the floor. Don't worry guys, next step is going to be to give you some more potatoes and build some shelters for you. Shelters are going to be fun because you can stack them on top of each other. We can unlock stairs very soon and platform, which is going to help us with organizing the housing. Yes, here's the drought, by the way. It's going to be the end of the first episode, but let me just finish up the thought. We are going to start stacking houses on top of each other and creating elaborate beaver, beaver tenements. I like how that works. It's always fun. Why, they already finished up the storage. I did not even notice that. So you work on those carrots, and you will see that, yes, the water has stopped coming from here. I'm actually hit by a 5-day drought. Not bad. It's not very nice of the game, but because we have built the dam over here and the dam over here, while the water is falling away in this area, you can see it slowly disappearing, we retain it all the way through here. Yep. Even the bad water is going away, so we'll see most of the area just dry down. The trees, you don't have to worry about those. They can survive extensive amount of drought. Usually, I think it's 12 days for most. 12 days for you. Are there any saplings we can check over here? Yeah, 14 days for pines. Oaks almost 70 days. Alright, so we don't have to worry. But yeah, as you can see, we have retained fertile land in our area, so it's basically like there's no drought at all. So I'm just gonna end the episode here. When I come back next time, we are going to have probably already planned housing for the beavers. We are going to start farming on the other side. We now have 12 beavers available. We have 2 vacancies, but I think that's actually completely fine. Well, they're working here. They're in the farm. I have a worker in the pump. Is it here? Ah, yeah. Okay, so we have just 1 lumberjack, but that doesn't really matter because, there's not that many trees. We'll need to move them to another place, which is going to be here. The oaks are actually the best source of wood because they give you 8, but they take the longest to grow. I'm gonna try to unlock the forester and sawmill and create another part of the industry for ourselves for the upgrades of the settlement. We'll need planks. Logs are not good for more complex buildings, but for now, again, it's gonna be just the housing and the second farm, and then we're gonna jump on the more complex stuff. So, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this first episode showing you the basics of how to survive your first drought. And, stressing that point that I made about looking a little bit more carefully on your environment in the beginning to avoid some mistakes, which, I mean, in this case it wasn't really costly, but this whole thing with the water pump and building a small reservoir is just not a great idea when you think about it, yeah. But we'll try to, cut down these trees and basically flood this entire area before the next drought so that we have some aquatic farms available for ourselves. That's gonna give us yet another source of food. I didn't even realize that, but yeah, it will. So we'll have, potatoes, carrots, and we could actually mix the other part. It wouldn't have to be only potatoes. It could be half potatoes, half sunflowers, and we could also have some aquatic farms here, which is going to be great. But we'll have to move these to other places. Like I said, we'll have oaks, and we can plant some more here while we, take down the rest of this forest for logs. So yeah, again, thank you very much for joining me. I will see you next time.